College baseball going down this week. Who are some of the schools to look forward to in the Big West Conference? Who's going to make a big splash? Find out in the next edition of Sideline Sports Podcast. Welcome to Sideline Sports Podcast. If you're not on the sideline, it's not Sideline Sports Podcast. If you're a big-time college sports fan, this is just your Christmas right now. This is just your time of year. You've got college basketball, you got college baseball coming up this week, and you got college volleyball if you into that, and who can discount softball as well. But I am Alex Naveja from Sideline Sports Podcast, or if you're not on the sideline, it's not Sideline Sports Podcast, a source of your SoCal sports news via Sideline Sports Media. Make sure to go down in the description below, hit the subscription button, also hit the thumbs up and the notification bell so you guys can stay up to date with everything SoCal sports, and also follow us on all of our social media platforms down below. But without further ado, let's introduce him. My good friend from CSUN Soccer. We go way back. Ghizal, I still remember going up to you during a CSUN basketball game and wanting to meet you. And look at you. Got your hands full with CSUN's hoops. You're going to be doing some CSUN's baseball, doing UCR. I feel like you could be like Mr. Big West. How about that? Mr. Ghizal Hasan himself.
I'll take it. I've been called worse, Alex, and I remember you hustling as a young guy, going out and trying to get work, and I want to give you a shout out because you're working in professional baseball now, and you know every player in college baseball wants to move to that next level and live the dream to be a pro. But I'm telling you, we've talked a lot, man, and I'm so impressed because you're a guy that didn't have any hooks. You're not Joe Buck's nephew. You really went out and got it, and I give you thumbs up, and I give you props for going out and getting it. And you're a professional baseball broadcaster, and it's well deserved. And I look forward to listening to you call the Emeralds this year, man.
Well, I really appreciate it, Ghizal. I'm definitely going to be tuning in to some CSUN baseball, some UCR baseball as well, especially when my boys Long Beach State will be going over to CSUN and to UCR. Big series in March.
CSUN and Long Beach State. Yeah, it's gonna be a big series.
And you know how it goes down, Ghizal. It's just Long Beach State and CSUN. It's always a great series. CSUN always plays Long Beach State strong every year.
Well, I've been really intrigued by Long Beach State. I saw them twice last year because they played both CSUN and UC Riverside. And Eric Valenzuela now heading into his third year. The first year cut short by COVID. Last year, the Dirtbags weren't able to start, because LA County regulations. The Matadors were affected by that as well. And Long Beach State, I would argue, they probably should have been in the postseason. They weren't able to get in because they got started too late. But I have a feeling we're going to see them in the postseason this year because they're stacked coming back. They have talent at the plate. They have talent on the mound. They always have talent on the mound. And I think we've seen what Coach Valenzuela can do. He really knows how to put it all together. And as a result, they're the favorites in the Big West, Alex.
Definitely a favorite. And when I had him on the podcast, he was talking about him being more of a pitcher's coach and just the way he's able to work with his pitchers and get them through innings type of thing. But you know what, Ghizal? Year in, year out, Long Beach State is never really the top dog in the conference. How about UCI? That's a really good program as well. And they actually got ranked better than Long Beach State. The Dirtbags are going in number 24, and UCI, you could probably confirm it better than me, but they're number 20. Is that correct?
Yeah, and a lot of that is because, they had a great year last year. They finished 32-8 in the conference, and they went to the postseason, and they came within a game of ousting Stanford, and Stanford ended up playing in Omaha. So, they got there. It was right there for the taking. They couldn't quite do it. But, Coach Ben Orloff won Coach of the Year, and they're coming back, and they have a lot of big players coming back. Michael Frias was a first-team All Big West player. Their bullpen is really strong, and they had a couple of guys back. Justin Torres, Nick Pinto, Nathan Church is a guy that did everything. He was an outfielder for them, but he can get on base. He's a great defensive player, and he's great with the bat. So they're a very balanced team, Alex. They have a lot of talent, and they bought in. Coach Orloff has bought in some extra talent, and I think in the Big West poll, Irvine, it's Long Beach 1, Irvine 2. But I think on the national scale, obviously, because Irvine was in the postseason last year, they have a little bit more of a profile. But I wouldn't count your Dirtbags out. I think your Dirtbags going to be pretty good this year, Alex.
And they always tend to schedule pretty strong as well. But I saw UCI's schedule too, and it's not a walk in the park. That's what you got to love about the Big West Conference. These schools, they just schedule so strong. They're not afraid of taking the challenge, going against nationally ranked teams, highly ranked. Before we even recorded this episode, Hawaii has a date with Vanderbilt, which is a nationally ranked team. You've also got Long Beach State. They're playing the national champions with Mississippi State. You got to love it. You just got to love it. The Big West is just underrated. That's an easy quote to say.
But I mean, I really don't think – I think the people – if you follow college baseball, you know how good the Big West is. And as a result, that's why these teams like Mississippi State and Vanderbilt, and remember when Fullerton was winning all those games and they were going to Omaha – Alex, they were playing top-level teams in the preseason and the non-league schedule. Teams are willing to come out to Southern California because, you start the year in February, and better to start it in California than anywhere else. So I think if you look up and down the schedules of all the Big West squads, they all have some intriguing opponents coming in to visit them, or they're traveling to some interesting opponents, high-level Power 5 opponents as well.
And then you got to love to see it. I mean, us, Angelinos, we always love to see the Vanderbilts, love to see the Arizonas, the Arizona States, the great colleges from other states, from other conferences, getting to see that. Now, I want to ask you, I mean, you're going to do some CSUN work. What are the Matadors looking like this year? Are we going to see them start to move up in there? I know with Coach Serrano, he was still pretty new to the system. What's going on over there?
Well, no, I mean, Coach Serrano bought his system in, and it clicked. I mean, they had a little bit – now, again, they were in the same boat as Long Beach State. They had to start very, very late, so they got off to a bit of a slow start, but they won 12 of their last 16 down the stretch. Their top pitcher is back. Kai Moody, the Big West batting champion, is back. They've added some pieces as well. And I have a feeling that they were picked, I think, like 6th or 7th in the preseason poll. I have a feeling they're going to finish well ahead of that. And, of course, Coach Serrano announced before the season this is going to be his last year. He's going to be retiring, and so I think they're going to play for him and play for his staff. And it's funny because I saw Coach, I'll go by the office, and I saw Coach, and he's still kind of doing his thing. He goes out for his run every day. So I was a little bit surprised. I was taken aback when they announced he was retiring. I know he wants to, do some stuff with his family, and that was the reason he did it. He wants to kind of spend time with his family. His kids are growing up a little bit, and I know he wants to be a little more active in their lives. But, I will say this. I mean, Coach Serrano says he's retiring, and, he's a straight-up guy. I'll take him at his word. But I have a feeling that maybe in 3 to 4 years, when the kids are done with college and whatnot, done with high school and stuff, that he may get the itch to come back and do something in baseball. Remember, he worked in the media for a year before he took the CSUN job. He worked for Baseball America. So I could see him either doing that or I could see him coming back and coaching. But to answer your question, they lost a lot. They graduated a lot of players last year, did CSUN, but he has filled it in. They got a good young core. They bought in some JC and some transfer guys to plug some gaps, and then they have the returnees from last year. And I have a feeling they're going to surprise some people, and they're playing a decent schedule. They open at UCLA this weekend, so we'll find out a lot about CSUN as this weekend unfolds, because UCLA comes in ranked. They're one of the top few teams. I think top 3 teams in the Pac-12. So that'll be interesting to see how that season begins for them. And their home opener is the next week. Pacific out of the West Coast Conference comes to play in the Valley.
Very nice. CSUN finishing up 4th or tied 4th in the Big West Conference with Cal Poly. So, hey, CSUN, they're going to get back in the maps. Now, I wanted to ask you, is Brandon Boning coming back, or is he done?
No, Boning, as far as I know, he's on the roster, and he's back this year. And so I don't know. Like I haven't heard much recently. I had heard there was talk of maybe him changing positions because he's a shortstop and they bought in some other shortstops. So maybe they'll move him to second or maybe move him to the outfield. But I haven't heard anything more of that. I haven't attended any workouts as of yet, but we'll find out. He's back this year for them. Kai Moody, they thought maybe he would get drafted, but he had an injury which precluded him from being drafted. So I think they're happy to have him back. And then, their top starter as well, they thought might go into the pro ranks, but he's back as well. So they got some solid guys returning. But I think if the Matadors succeed, it'll be based on the young guys that have come in and a couple of the transfers they brought in as kind of to strengthen the depth of that lineup.
I know Brandon Boney had a really good summer, had the opportunity to broadcast games during the summer for the Arroyo Seco Saints. So he was actually one of the top shortstops in that team. On that team, right. He was tough to take out of the lineup because if they took him,
so
off
he was
the
playing
lineup,
short. Yeah, so if he was playing short, then he's probably back in the infield this year. I'd heard maybe he was contemplating a position change, but if he played shortstop over the summer, that means they want him to play infield. So that's you got some good information there.
Pretty good information, really good guy to get on base. And as far as fielding is concerned, hardly made any errors. So I don't see him moving anywhere else other than like in the infield, maybe at third, maybe second. But
that's why I thought I'd heard that because he's so good, he's a guy that could go play anywhere, right? Like if you ask him to go out, Kai Moody did that last year. He played a little first, played a little second, played a little outfield, so they could move other guys around. And that's the case with Boning, right? Boning is such a good athlete and good fielder that other guys who need certain positions, well, you can move Boning a couple different places. That means somebody else who maybe is not as good a defender can get in the lineup because you have the option of moving Brandon to a couple of different positions. But if you're telling me he was a pretty good shortstop, I would guess Dave Serrano will have him at shortstop for the Matadors.
I think your guess is just as good as my guess, Ghizal. You know it. You're the voice of CSUN baseball, and you got it under control there. What about UC San Diego and Bakersfield? I know how they do against their new competition.
UC San Diego, UCSD, and I'm friendly with Bryson LeBlanc. He's one of the assistants there, and he was on the Riverside staff for many years. They had a solid first year in the league. And they were a Division II power. And I expect them to be very good, very fast in the conference because they have the facilities down there. And obviously, San Diego is tremendous in terms of recruiting for college baseball. And they've done a good job regionally bringing people in. And obviously the academics and just the overall, profile of that university. I mean, who wouldn't want to go to UCSD, Alex, right? Like it's an easy sell, right, for them to go down there. Bakersfield is always solid. My guy Jamie Holloway is going to be calling their games this year on the radio side, so that'll be exciting. He's a Long Beach State guy just like you, and I just talked to him today, as a matter of fact. They're always pesky. They got to a couple of postseasons in the Western Athletic Conference. I think it'll take them. They're kind of going through a little bit of a transition in the sense that not only do they move conferences, but they had a lot of talent go out of there. They were really 15, 16, 17, they were battling for the postseason in the WAC, and that group was pretty solid. In the last couple of years, they've had people graduate and move on, so they kind of need to reload a little bit this season, and I think they'll be okay. Will the people, up at Hart Field, it'll be fun. But it's always a fun environment up there if you've never gone to a game in Bakersfield, because they're kind of the only game in town now since the minor league team left a few years ago. So the atmosphere at Hart Field when they play at home is pretty dynamic, and I think that'll help, right? That'll help the players, and it helps the coaches a little bit when you have the local community behind them. They'll be exciting, and they're gonna have some interesting opponents come in there as well. But I want to talk to you about the teams up on the Central Coast, because these could be potentially two postseason teams. And I'm talking about Andrew Checketts at UC Santa Barbara, who've been to the College World Series before. And they have a number of they lost a lot of talent last year, but Jordan Sprinkle is back. He was the co-freshman of the year. He's talking about shortstops. And then, Carter Benbrook is back, on the pitching side out of the bullpen. And they were actually ranked by a couple of publications to be in the top 25. And, we've been hearing about Andrew Checketts. His name has been floated with some big high-profile jobs. but he chooses to say in the Big West. He chooses to say as UC Santa Barbara because I think the university there wants to really make a commitment to baseball because they know they can win there and upgrade the facility and the stadium and all that stuff. Like people like Jim Rohn need to start writing checks. He's a Gauchos alum. Write a check so that baseball can upgrade. And then I know you've seen the video, Alex. Cal Poly has upgraded their baseball facility yet again, and they potentially have a top 5 big league pick on their roster, and their shortstop Brooks Lee. Brooks Lee was the co-player of the year last year, and I mean, I don't know if you've seen him play, but wow, talk about dynamic. You can see that this is a future big leaguer in the making.
I was going to transition into what UC Santa Barbara has, what Cal Poly has in the books, but Santa Barbara just has that winning culture in baseball, and just like baseball.
They do.
Baseball being like that number one sport, Santa Barbara is always a tough school to play. Doesn't matter who you are. They always get the better end of it. They finished second last year in the Big West Conference. They were the last team in the Big West last year to get that last spot to go to the regionals and to be able to make it. UCI and UC Santa Barbara and Cal Poly. They were behind Long Beach State in the standings as well. Cal Poly, what is it about them that they just play Big West so strong? It looks like their overall record doesn't reflect it, but man, look at their conference record. It's astounding.
Yeah, it's been a while, and unfortunately they need to get some higher profile opponents in. And actually, I think they suffer. The strength of the Big West hurts them a little bit just because of the travel, because if you're now an opponent coming from outside of Southern California, you can fly into Los Angeles and you can play Long Beach State. You can play in Irvine. You can play a Fullerton. You can play in Northridge. You can play a Riverside or a Santa Barbara, which is kind of a bus ride. Whereas, out in the Central, it's a little bit of a longer drive out to Cal Poly. So they have to kind of rely on maybe some Bay Area opponents to come down. And I haven't looked at their schedule. So they've been able to get people in the past, but I think in recent years, they kind of lose out because given a choice, they'd rather go play a Fullerton or a Santa Barbara or Irvine just because the logistics are a little bit easier than getting up there to the Central Coast. And the Central Coast is a beautiful part of the country. So that's a part of the state. So I would go up there. And I think a lot of coaches for that reason, don't want to go up there, right? They don't want their players out there hanging out on the beach. They want them thinking business. But I do think Cal Poly is going to be very good this year. They're pitching, Drew Thorpe. We saw him last year. Their pitching was very good, and they've gotten a lot of those guys back, and they brought in some young guys as well. But the core of the players are there from last year, and I think they'll continue to kind of take the move up. But one of the teams I wanted to talk to you about was Cal State Fullerton, which is intriguing because they have a new coach in place. Jason Diedrich takes over from Rick Vanderhook, and I'm interested to see the transition there because they had a lot of talent go out, Alex, but they also have some talent that's still there solidly coming in. And I think Jason Diedrich was brought in specifically to deal with the pitching staff, and we'll see how that goes. They had a rough year. Their pitching staff, believe it or not, this is a Titan team. Their team ERA was over 6. It was, I think, 6.01, which is shocking if you've got guys like you and me who've covered the Titans over the years.
Cal State Fullerton is just the team that you think about. 1995, they won the national championship. They're a college baseball team. Everybody knows the blue and the orange.
Yeah.
That's just their strength. That's just their forte. Then to hear them kind of fall off the map after Coach Rick Vanderhook retires, it's not likely of Cal State Fullerton. That's always, you think Long Beach State, Cal State Fullerton, the rivalry right there in the Big West, and Cal State Fullerton in previous years. This one hurts to mention. This one hurts, Ghizal, but Cal State Fullerton always beats Long Beach State when it came down to the playoffs, in the regionals, in the big stages.
That 2017 Super Regional was a classic at Blair Field. I know you were there for those games, and that was just a classic. And it was unfortunate because had the Beach won, it would have been 4 different teams from the Big West in Omaha in 4 straight years, right? Because Irvine went in 14, Fullerton went in 15, Santa Barbara went in 16. Had Long Beach won, they would have gone in 17, but Fullerton won and instead, ended up getting to Omaha as well. So that was really classic. I haven't looked at the players as much. I saw them last year, obviously, when they came to Southern California. But I'm interested to see how is Rich Hill's game from USD going to translate to the less in Honolulu, because he's the new head coach of the University of Hawaii. And I'm really intrigued by how his system and what he does will translate over there to the island where, again, they're a focal point, right? Because the Bows are kind of the pro team on the city, in the city of Honolulu, and they get great fan support at Les Murakami Stadium. And I'm really interested to see how Hawaii does here under Rich Hill in their first year under his skippership.
The Rainbow Warriors, man, don't sleep on them. They always have a solid squad there in baseball. They took 2 out of the 3 games with Long Beach State. Long Beach State didn't quite have like a very strong game against them to open up the Big West last year. But man, no, the Rainbow Warriors, they took care of business. And this year they're playing against Vandy. The Vandy boys are going to Honolulu. They're going to play them. And they scheduled really strong this year.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what Rich Hill did. He did that at USD, and now he's done it at Hawaii. So I'm interested to see, it'd been a while since USD had gone to the postseason. They had a great run. Remember Chris Bryant was there, and they had a great run. And they were always kind of in contention. And I think their failure to get to the next level was maybe more about the WCC not, becoming a one bid league. And I think that's part of the reason that Rich, after so many years at San Diego, took the Hawaii job. But we'll see if that helps him any. We'll see if he's got some magic he can sprinkle. Now, heck, if he can bring a guy like Chris Bryant to the island, that'll solve a lot of problems, right? But I'm really interested to see how that change comes over. And maybe they'll have a transitional year, but obviously, he's got the track record. It speaks for itself. And I would guess it will be only a matter of time before the Bows are back in the postseason.
It's not going to take long. I don't think it's going to take them that long to really figure things out. I mean, like you said, to pick up a name like Chris Bryant, one of the biggest names in Major League Baseball now, I'm not scared about Hawaii. I think they have everything figured out. They're going to have things figured out, and it's going to take a real big challenge for Hawaii to keep up with all of these big names, schools there in the Big West. But how about UCR? How are things looking over there in the IE? What are they looking like? The Highlanders, what do they have in store for this coming season, Ghizal?
Well, I mean, last year, they had a rough year, and the issue, I think, they had some injuries in the pitching staff. And, the pitchers are healthy. And the advantage was, though, they were able to get a lot of guys experience, Now, Zach Jacobs had a great freshman year, was cut short because of COVID. And then all of a sudden, he's the Friday guy. And he was pretty solid last year, but kind of struggled in spots. And I think he's going to have a bounce back year. Remember his freshman year, he threw a 3-hit shutout. He was the first Highlander to throw a shutout as a freshman since Matt Andriese. Andriese, ultimately, he's now in the big league, so you know where that goes. And they have more or less their entire starting lineup back. So from an offensive standpoint, I think they're going to be pretty good. The name to watch at UCR is Joey Nikolai. He's a first baseman. He's a junior. He's coming out of Mater Dei. And he kind of had some ups and downs, but towards the middle of last year, he kind of figured it out, and he was raking it pretty strong. And I was talking to some scouts about the players they liked. And, obviously Nathan Webb, he's been there, and he's a solid guy, third baseman. He was just put on a list for the best third baseman in the country. But, people were talking about Nikolai. They were profiling him offensively in the same level as a guy like Connor Cannon. And that's high praise because Connor Cannon was a pretty high-level offensive player in the Big West. He was drafted, is now in the Yankees organization. So if Nikolai can approach that, that'll be a big focal point to, for UC Riverside because they really need the offense. I will say this, maybe the most important player on that team is going to be a transfer. It's a player named Danny Carnaza from North Carolina State, which is obviously a big baseball program. He's a catcher. And so, Ethan Payne graduated. So obviously they need a defensive stalwart behind the plate and to work with those pitchers. So watch Riverside, because if they can get any semblance of pitching, they can be very, very dangerous. And they're playing some solid, they're going on the road to Fresno State. They're going to play at UCLA. So they got some solid non-conference matchups to get them ready for the Big West. And, they're picked 10th, and I'll admit I'm a little biased. I root for those guys because the coaches I've become friendly with them over the years. But after last year, their record last year was a little misleading because they were missing some players and they had a lot of injuries on the pitching staff. Andre Granillo, who was their starter now in the Cardinals organization, broke his hand. They lost him for most of the year. He came back late and pitched okay. And then, Ty Frazier, who they thought was going to be one of their main guys, he struggled coming back from an arm injury. He did end up pitching last year, but obviously wasn't at the level that he could be. And, I mentioned Zach Jacobs already. I think if that pitching staff can be healthy and be solid, they could be a surprise. They could be a dark horse team in that league.
Mm-hmm. I don't know what it is about UC Riverside, but you guys always produce really strong hitters and real good first basemen. Yeah. I remember when I was still there with Long Beach State, you guys, there was always that big 6'3", 6'4" first baseman, really big build that was just raking. He would just rake there at Blair, and you guys always produce really good hitters. Now,
the year, it was funny, the year that you did those games, Long Beach swept that series, but, Dean Miller, who's now in the Red Sox organization, and Connor Kim down the end, they would get hits, but the pitches would shut pretty much everybody else down. And so it looked worse than it was. They hit well at Blair, but Long Beach, they had some serious pitching the last 3 or 4 years. Even, the last couple of years that Buckley was there. So that was always a fun series to go to Blair and play with UCR and Long Beach State. That was always pretty good. But I think the bats are there for the Highlanders, Alex. It's just a matter of if the arms are, in place, maybe they can surprise some people this year.
And pitching wins you ball games. You know that better than I do, Ghizal, because if you don't have healthy arms, it's kind of hard to, have the arms just not produce and all these runs score. You got to produce more runs type of thing. And it's just out of whack like that. Very tough to win games.
You look at the teams on the West Coast that are successful, Alex, and, they all have good offenses, but it's pitching and defense, and almost like defense and pitching go hand in hand. But, to a degree in the Big West, everybody has some good pitchers. But what is the difference? The difference is, can you catch it? Can you get extra outs? Can you be efficient, in terms of the defensive side? Do you give the other team extra outs, right? If a pitcher walks a guy, how often does he score? How many runs can you prevent with your foot speed in the outfield and the infield? There are a lot of factors, and this applies, the Pac-12 as well, or the West Coast Conference as well. When those teams make runs in the postseason, it's almost always predicated on the way they play defense. And then also on the clutch side, can they get 2-out hits? Can they bring home 2-out RBI? Those are the questions that happen when you're playing at a higher level, right? When you get to the postseason, everybody's a good team, so the margin for error is that much smaller.
Absolutely. In college baseball, you can't take anything for granted. One error could be the difference maker in the game. And the guys are playing with a lot of heart and a lot of hustle, and they're going to make you pay. College baseball, it's great to watch. Everything's trying to get that spot to get drafted at the end of the year. But we have one more team on the board now. We're missing UC Davis. This is the last but not least team in the Big West. What happened to the Aggies this year?
It's really tough. I'm going to kind of punt this one for you, Alex, because to be fair, I did not see the Aggies last year. So it's been a while since I've seen the Aggies, but forget the on-the-field stuff, the on-the-field struggles. The off-the-field stuff has been crazy over there. They had to replace their head coach, suspended the coaching staff for a while. There was some controversial stuff going on in terms of hazing, but I just hope the best for the players, right? Because it's tough to play up there at Davis because you're almost kind of segregated because, all the teams are really more or less in Southern California for the Big West. So you don't have a lot of, everything's a road trip, right? You're coming to Southern California. And even in terms of non-league stuff, it's hard to get opponents for Davis, to get out there who are not in California. So you just really root for them. And, it wasn't too long ago that they were kind of like, a spunky little underdog in the Big West. And they would surprise some people. And you hope they can finally get back to that level and be a factor at least against some of the other teams. And it's just, it's tough. It's been rough. And you feel for the players because the coaches, you obviously you hate to see anybody lose a job, but at least that those people have been compensated for a number of years. Whereas, the players, this is really their only shot to play college baseball. So I'm hoping the new staff in place there just gets it going and at least gets them to the point where they're able to compete and have fun and showcase their skills, because there's a lot of talented players on that team up there, Alex. And it's unfortunate what happened with the program, but I'm hoping that they can start on a positive step here in 2022 and at least get back to competition where we're not talking about off the field stuff. We can get back to talking about the on the field stuff with the Aggies.
Yeah, of course. Like you said, it's tough to find opponents there in Davis. You're either going up north to Oregon State, or you're going in that area, maybe Sac State. You don't have so much competition, or you're going down south to SoCal.
Yeah, well, I mean, you get Sac State, and there's kind of like they have Bay Area stuff. They'll play Pacific, and they'll play some of those other Bay Area teams in the West Coast Conference. But it's not as easy as in Southern California here for non-leagues. If you look at the midweek stuff, Alex, there's some great matchups on the midweek between WCC and Pac-12, and even some of the Mountain West teams coming down to play Big West teams, and it's hard. So Davis kind of gets shut out of that, right? They have kind of a limited window of teams they can play in the midweeks.
It's hard. It's really, really hard to find competition for UC Davis, but I think they'll be up on the incline. I think they can definitely find their way inside of the Big West and make their move. And
this may be a tough year for Davis, but if their staff that's in there now can kind of get some footing and get them competing, then it's attractive to go play somewhere, because they're going to need people to come in and play right away. And if you're a high school athlete, that's always something you got to weigh, right? Do I want to go to a place like a Santa Barbara or a Long Beach where I might need to sit? Or can I go to a Davis, which is a very strong academic school, but I'll have the opportunity to play right away? And that's something you got to weigh as a baseball player sometimes, or any other kind of athlete. What do you want to do? That's the question. And if this coaching staff can get things turned around, then all of a sudden you become attractive, because it's a great college town. It's a great academic institution. And now I'm going to be able to go and play as a freshman, whereas somewhere else I might get limited at bats.
Very true. I've never thought about it like that. UC Davis, it's a really nice campus from what I've heard. A lot of people, when they get in there, it's really smart kids, great GPAs, and really, really big on their academics. But they've got some very nice athletes throughout the board. I mean, really strong basketball school. They do really well in the athletics department. Ghizal, I'm going to finish up the show with one quick answer, one quick question, one quick answer. Who's the sleeper team in the Big West?
All right. I'm going to give you two. So I'm going to stay away from Riverside and CSUN since I'm associated with them. The two teams I would watch this year for sure would be Hawaii and Fullerton, because I think a lot of people are thinking Fullerton may take a backslide, but there's enough talent on that team where they maybe can surprise some people. And, Rich Hill, he's kind of like the old guy on the basketball court. Your buddies go to play basketball. There's only 7 of you. You need to pick up an 8th. And there's the old guy sitting there shooting baskets. And then all of a sudden, halfway into the game, you're like, wow, this guy doesn't miss, So I think Rich Hill can work a little magic with the Bows in Hawaii and make them a little bit better. But listen, I'm looking forward, and it's going to be very competitive, I believe, this year. And I'm looking forward to those top teams, the Long Beach and the Irvines and the Santa Barbaras and the Cal Polys doing battle. I think that'll be a lot of fun to begin with. And there's always going to be some secondary level teams that are going to give other teams problems. Like one of the matchups I'm looking at right away is early in the conference schedule. CSUN is going to play Long Beach State that last weekend in March. It'll be that second week of the NCAA tournament. So it's going to be Long Beach is coming down to the valley, coming up to the valley, and that'll be really interesting. That's an interesting matchup. I want to see how Irvine and Fullerton play. I want to see that matchup between UC Santa Barbara and CSU Bakersfield. How is that going to break out, right? So there are a lot of fun series that we're going to be able to watch. And the cool thing is they're all going to be on the ESPN Plus platform this year. And if not, for the most part, you'll be able to get free audio at the Varsity app if you have the app downloaded to your phone or your tablet. So a lot of Big West content out there for baseball if you're interested, and it's readily available.
As easy as this, guys. Just get the Disney Plus bundle where you get the Hulu, the Disney Plus, and the ESPN. It's as easy as that. I did that. I'm staying up to date with Long Beach State athletics now. I know Ghizal's doing the same thing with CSUN and with Riverside. Who am I kidding? You're there in the action. You don't need no ESPN.
Well, listen, man, it's funny because I got the Disney bundle so I could watch The Mandalorian. So the added, this is just an added bonus for me. It's just an added bonus for me, right?
You need the.
It's
It's
like you, Alex.
Go ahead.
It's like you, Alex, because you always go home with the prettiest girl at the party, and then you find out she's rich. No, I kid. But I mean, no. I mean, I'm happy to see that you did the bundle, and now you have access to all this great baseball content.
Oh, you know it, Ghizal. I'm already looking forward to it on Friday. I already have it set on my phone for the notification. 1:00 Pacific time, first pitch against Mississippi State. You best believe I'm going to be there on my computer, but at the same time, my phone on the side right here watching it. We'll keep that between you and me. But Ghizal, it's a pleasure to have you on the show, man. Really appreciate it. Appreciate the insight of Big West baseball. I know you're going to have your hands tied for the next couple of weeks, and let me make my appointment on chatting with you the next time right now.
Well, hey, let us know when your season starts, my friend. I'm interested to hear you call the Emeralds up there. We had a bunch of UCR guys who were drafted. They used to be the Padres short season team. So we had a couple guys play up there out of UCR. I know Andres started his career at Eugene. So I'm anxious to see how you do up there. And again, congratulations. We talked before you turned the mic on, and I'm glad to hear you're enjoying it because that's also part of it. Obviously you're there for business and to work, but I'm glad you seem to be enjoying the journey, son, my friend.
Thank you so much, Ghizal. Really appreciate the kind words. I wish you the best of luck on all of your calls coming up.
Same to you. I'm glad you enjoy them.
Thank you. And I'm going to definitely tune into some of your broadcasts. And guys, you guys should definitely tune in as well. ESPN Plus, easy for any CSUN hoops, baseball, UCR, baseball. You guys name it. You guys can find Ghizal almost everywhere. I'm going to put his handles down in the description below so you guys can follow him on everything. And if you guys like this episode, give it a thumbs up. Hit the subscribe button, the notification bell, and comment down below who are your Big West schools. We want to hear all about that. But we're all out of time. I am Alex Naveja from Sideline Sports Podcast. Thank you so much for tuning into this one. And enjoy college baseball and college basketball. Go Big West Conference, baby.